Hi, I'm Brandon.
And Mom, thank you so much for joining us today. We have another exciting show that we'd like to talk to you about, another first episode. And we're talking about young Sheldon.
Yes, I'm so excited to be speaking about young Sheldon here on the show, and I hope that you are doing well coming on. And so, Mom, what do we know about this show?
Actually, Brandon, I can honestly say I know absolutely nothing. So this was for us. It was truly a first episode. We have neither of us have ever seen an episode before.
Yeah, I have never seen the show. I know vaguely anything about it. I know close enough, I think. So this truly was a first viewing, first impression for us, truly.
It sure was, Brandon. I will say it was a pleasant surprise, though.
Yes, definitely. And so, Mom, are you able to fill us in? Like, what is the show about based off of this first episode?
Well, and just very briefly, I would say it's a show about a family with three children, and one of their younger children, young man, he is 9 years old, and he is getting ready to go to high school. And so that is really it's about a young, smart child ready to go to high school.
Yeah, and so it was really interesting. I mean, diving into this, and so this does use the narrator style, sort of retrospective, viewing. We've seen this type of storytelling on a few different shows in the past, like for instance, like Wonder Years type shows, and so it's interesting seeing it in this sort of retrospect.
Yeah, it really was. Oh, and just so the audience will know, the show does take place in the late '80s.
Yes, and it is developed as a spin-off or prequel of the popular series The Big Bang Theory, which neither of us have seen as well.
No, we haven't. So that'll be another show we'll have to tackle on another day.
Yeah, and so I don't really know much about either series, but it was actually like really fun being able to dive into a new series we know truly nothing about, and just learning more about the characters and this universe as a whole.
Yeah, and I think this kind of helps us develop a little bit more about what we think the show will be about, that we'll talk about in just a minute, and what we actually learned from this particular episode.
Yeah, and so overall, of course, we can tell that Sheldon is the main character. I mean, I would presume so with his name being on the title, but yeah, based off of what we've seen in this episode and what we can just infer is that I guess this shows the story of Sheldon's upbringing. I guess potentially bringing him to where we are in the Big Bang Theory.
Yes, that's what it looks like. It am I able to give some general thoughts, Brandon, of
Yeah,
what I
go right
thought?
ahead.
Or okay, well, let me tell you about some things we kind of learned from this particular episode. Like I said, since it was so new for us, as we kind of mentioned, we Sheldon is actually, we find out, is a twin, and he has a twin sister named Missy. Missy is your average child, so she is remaining in whatever grade she's in. I'm assuming third or fourth. Whereas Sheldon is 9 years old, entering high school. But Sheldon also has an older brother who is named after his father, named Georgie, and is George's ninth grade year also. So we can see that they possibly are going to be talking about maybe the relationship between both the brothers in regards to how they're dealing with high school, because they do talk about that first day of high school. We learned that Georgie is on the football team. And we also learned that the father also is the coach of this particular football team. We learned that his parents are both concerned about Georgie going to school. They're very not Georgie. They're both concerned about how Sheldon going to school, and they're also concerned about how his interaction will be with everyone else. They're concerned about his appearance and how he wants to dress that first day. They're doing everything they can to try to make sure that he fits in. But we also find out that Sheldon is very literal, and so that everything he has learned, he thinks that everything needs to go a certain way. We know that the mother is very religious, and she wants that for her children also. I said it takes place in the late '80s, so the show does take place in 1989, and it's kind of like you mentioned, the narration format is used. And we also find out that the parents themselves can't afford private school, which is something they talked about previously in regards to having especially their young child possibly go to. And we learned that the sister cusses. That is, I mean, for a young child. And there's not a laugh track used on this show either. And we do know that this takes place in Texas also.
Yeah, so it's certainly interesting. I mean, diving into this a little bit, and so yeah, I think like you just mentioned, we can tell that Sheldon does take things quite literally. He seems to very much like order in everything, and that everything's supposed to be the way that they are in the books, and and we can see, from bits and pieces, that he does seem to learn a bit from, like some television scientists, for instance, and so we can sort of see where he gets some of that. I mean, some of the knowledge and the natural curiosity that he has, but you can see that his mother is very supportive in what he's doing, and the father is supportive as well, but he's also a bit more cautious to make sure that Sheldon doesn't get hurt in the process of it.
Yes, very, very, very true.
Yeah, and we do see, of course, that Georgie doesn't seem to like being in Sheldon's shadow, so to speak, whereas Sheldon's twin sister Missy seems to not care in the slightest about anything, at least from this first episode of my viewing, anyway.
Yes, it is. It is. I would argue that also too, Brandon. Yep, yeah, that is true. Now, I'm glad you mentioned that, Brandon. Um, Sheldon actually, he kind of alludes that he's a little bit of a germaphobe in the episode, and so when the family says grace, he always puts on gloves in order to touch hands with his sibling and with his father. And at the very end of the episode, he and his father had a bonding moment, and he pulled off his glove, and his father kind of looked down too, and realized that they were actually holding hands together for the I guess for the first time probably in years in regards to at that time saying grace to each other and that connection that they were making as a family. Actually, Brandon, we talked about this a little bit. And yes, actually, I would. I was very surprised and very shocked. And normally, just so the viewers know, I tend to have to watch these shows more than one time. Just because the first time I watch it, it really is just about just watching the show. And the second time, I kind of take the detailed notes. This time, when I finished Young Sheldon, I actually remembered most of it, and I was able to take my notes right away. So yes, it was very memorable, and yes, I think I will continue watching the show for further episodes. Actually, I am too, and I look forward to some other, for us at least, new episodes to watch. It really was kind of refreshing to see something brand new, and that was very enjoyable to see. Yep, you never know. And like I mentioned each week, if the audience has any shows that they want us to tackle or to look at for first episode purposes, please just let us know in the comments. Oh yeah, please let us know, and we'll be sure to do that. Oh, wow, that's another connection there, Brandon. I can't wait for the next one either. I will say, you always ask me about the theme song. Unfortunately, there was not a theme song, at least for this first episode that we saw.
We didn't see one for this, for this first episode. Although I did notice in the credits of it that there was a credit for a opening theme producer. So I don't know if maybe there's one in future episodes. But the person that it says composed the opening theme was Steve Burns, who played Steve from Blue's Clues. So maybe there's
Oh,
a
wow.
theme song in the future in some capacity.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look.
But yeah, well, this has been, like I said, so fun. And Mom, I always love doing this with you.
Yeah, same here, Brandon. Thank you guys for joining us today. All right, bye bye, everyone.